Time to get your fix.
Come on down, get your horrible gaming review. 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 Wow.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and welcome to another horrible game review. Before we get into it, as usual, a few disclaimers. Number one, I do not give scored reviews for my games. This is a snap judgment review system. So what I do is I get 5 to 10 hours with the games usually, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more. And what I'm trying to do is give you an idea right off the bat whether you're going to enjoy this game or not. I also believe they're one of the most subjective forms of art. All of that being said, what I will do is I'm going to tell you what the game is as an overall. I'm going to give you the pros and the cons of the game in my point of view, as all reviews are. Then I'll tell you whether I will be personally sticking with the game outside the purposes of this video. So what are we reviewing today? We are reviewing Rogue Legacy 2. This game hit early access last year. It has hit its final full version release just a few days ago. This is a sequel to the infinitely popular Rogue Legacy, which quite literally invented the roguelike genre. So I was kind of excited to do this. I also want to just give you one more little disclaimer. I never played Rogue Legacy, the first one. It was just one that I never got around to playing. So this was kind of a complete blank slate for me going in, but just something about the trailer for this game spoke to me, so I had to get in there, and because of that, I have to review it. The game itself is a very simple premise. It is a action platformer with ARPG kind of elements and a roguelike. You take a character. That character goes into a castle that is infinitely shifting. Its rooms change procedurally each time you go through, and then you move through it trying to collect artifacts and abilities and traits, as well as gold and other stuff, and get as far in it as you possibly can, defeating as many bosses as you can before that character inevitably dies. What's interesting about this is instead of some mechanic like Hades where it takes you back to the beginning because you're immortal and you have to try again, that character actually dies, and it procedurally generates 3 new characters. You pick one of those characters, and that's the next character to go into the castle and inevitably die for your run. What's interesting about this, too, is these characters have character classes that you can pick between. Each one makes the character very different in the way it plays, such as you have a barbarian who has a big axe strike, but it's relatively slow and has limited range, but also has a really nice spinning death wheel attack. However, its defensive power can only be used if it's been hit already, then opposed to a ranger, which is all ranged with bow attacks and bow defense and ranged defenses. Between each run, you will spend your time building up your own city, which means unlocking different things that are going to help you get further into the run. Give your characters more strength, more intelligence, more magic powers, more health. It also has a mechanism for unlocking classes, because you only start with just the knight class to begin with, which we'll get into in the pros and cons. You can also unlock various vendors, such as a blacksmith or a mage, that can actually add powers, armors, weapons, depending on gold that you come out with. What's interesting is any gold you collect on the previous run transfers to your new heir. That heir then gets to spend them at the vendors. However, any gold left unspent is given to this ferryman character who takes you to the castle when the run starts. So you lose all the gold that you don't spend. You also spend the gold on, of course, the village enhancements and increasing the upgrades for the character. The action is incredibly frenetic. It is incredibly challenging. Basically, it consists of a lot of different powers, spells. very akin to Dead Cells, and let's face it, probably Dead Cells. I mean, Dead Cells definitely came after Rogue Legacy, so I guess Dead Cells was more akin to the original one. But you get what I'm saying. It's very, very heavy on the action and very heavy on the challenge in this one. However, another interesting fact is in the options you can actually set what's called house rules and mess it up so that you can actually, if it's a little bit too hard for you, you could change it. If you don't like a feature of something, like say damage on contact with the enemy, you can take that out. That means the enemy actually has to do an attack to hurt you. Stuff like that, which makes it very interesting on that front. That is it. That is this game in a nutshell. Basically, you go in, you get as far as you can, you deal with as many traps, as many situations, collect as many permanent increasements as you can, collect as much gold as you can, and then hopefully set yourself up for a better run with whatever new class you get. Another interesting factor, and this was in the original game, but of course I have not experienced it, is these characters all have an ability and traits. These abilities and traits, you don't know what they do until you actually play a character with it. And they range from the silly to the debilitating to the really cool, and all of them are just very interesting. Like one of them is old school, and it's just basically the entire screen is through an old-timey like filter of yellow, and the music sounds like it's done through a pipe organ. It's very interesting. Another one is color blindness, and the whole screen will be black and white the entire time. Then there's other ones that are much worse, such as pacifism, which means the character can never actually deal damage to anything, which is really tough. Yeah, this is just a very interesting game on that front, and there's just so much into the procedural generation, and this is like core procedural generation. They're not doing anything new with the procedural generation here. They're just doing what it was originally designed for, and they're doing it really well. So let's go ahead and get into the pros and cons. All right, right off the bat, before we really get into the pros and cons, I want to say this game already made one of my Game of the Year lists, I think single-player Game of the Year. And I know this is a simple side-scroller. It's I don't know, there's just something there. They took a thing that they wanted to do, and they did it really well, without too many extra bells and whistles. The other thing about this that I really enjoyed, well, let's get into the first pro, and that is the simplicity of understanding. Somehow this game has tons of mechanics. I mean, tons of mechanics, but it is taught to you in such a quick and simple way that I never felt like I didn't understand what was going on screen. I love Dead Cells. I am a huge proponent of Dead Cells. I think it's one of the coolest games and one of the best roguelikes out there. That being said, even to date, there are things that I don't quite understand when they're happening on the screen. With this, everything, the way the enemies damage you, the way you use your powers, the way your weapons work, the stats, everything makes sense, and it makes sense really well. This is kind of an intangible because I can't explain why this does it so much better than others, but there's just something so uncomplicated and simple about this game. It really feels like they took a foundation, a sturdy foundation, and they built a mansion on it. And I love it when a game does that. My second pro is going to be kind of off the beaten track a little bit. I think this game is aesthetically pretty. I don't know what it is about the hand-drawn art here, and kind of I was a little bit put off at first that every character has this weird, like when they're moving forward, this weird like kind of like march step, no matter what they're doing or what class they are. But even that, it just, I don't know, like they're just, everything's so well drawn and so pretty that I really found myself getting sucked in to the aesthetic. Just looking at things was fun. I enjoyed that. My next pro, we'll dovetail right off that, and that's the music is incredibly well done. The score is fantastic. I really found myself tapping my toe while I was playing through things, especially when I was fighting bosses. They just, the tracks are great in this one. It gives you that old school, like, Metroidvania feel while still being a roguelike. And personally, I think when you're doing a 2D roguelike, it should kind of feel like the natural progression of like a roguelike, of a Metroidvania, and this really does with that. And it's just the music just feeds right into that. You can definitely see when you get into the other biomes and areas, you can really feel the shift in the music and what they were trying to copy from the original Castlevania Symphony of the Night if you played it. My next pro, I hate to even say this as a pro, but in 2022 it just has to be mentioned. I have not noticed any lag input delays. I have not noticed any bugs. I have not noticed any game breaking ish anywhere in this. And again, I get a very short time with these games for this review. That's the point. I'm trying to not let the whole game sway my early review. But that being said, the performance of this game is phenomenal. It is also really small. I think it's under a gig, and it plays like a game that should be more than a gig. It's just great. Like, you could have this on your hard drive and never worry about taking up too much space. It's something that you could always come back to, and I really enjoyed that. My next pro, and I know you're seeing that I've got a lot of them. Like I said, I've got it on a list already. The class-based system is phenomenal. I love the classes. Usually in a game like this, when I see the word classes, because it's a platformer, I'm like, how different is it really going to feel? How different is it really going to perform? Because 2D, I feel, is just so hard to do classes in right, because it always boils down to timing and jumping. Whereas this, they do it right. The classes, each one feels very different. It has a different feel, a different way of approaching combat and approaching things. And that was one of the most fun I had in the game, was grabbing a new class, going into the run, and kind of experimenting to see how I should approach fights with that class as opposed to others. And they really work them up with the amount of classes that they have in there, which there's at least more than 6. Every one of them so far has played completely and totally different. I also want to give one final pro before we move into the con section, and this will kind of dovetail into that. The pro is that with these procedurally generated games, and in this case, when you die, it takes all the classes that you have unlocked. It gives you a choice of 3 characters. Those characters have the traits and everything on it that you have to learn or whatever, and you get to pick which one you make the run with, which one you try with. What's interesting, too, is this is just a side point. The traits, when they're really debilitating, you'll get extra gold for doing the run, which is nice. But what I noticed here is when you unlock a class, which we're going to get into this in the cons, but when you unlock a class via like building a building or whatever in your castle, you have the option to immediately switch the character you have to that class, which is really cool. True roguelike and procedurally generated stuff, you would expect, hey, these are the 3 you get. That's what it is. When you unlock this, it's just going to throw it into the pool. But at least this way, I can immediately try that character class, because that's really where the fun is. And I didn't have to wait for it to just populate in my random chance or whatever. It was just right there. Boom, bam, you got it. But let's move to cons, and this is going to dovetail into my cons. Why aren't the classes all unlocked in the first place? I don't understand that. I understand every other upgrade you make. Upgrading for the blacksmith, the architect, the magical character, the extra vitality and strength and all that. I get that. But why lock these functional character classes behind grabbing them? Because from what I can tell, none of them are definitely better than the other ones. I mean, I personally found some easier to play, but at the same time, I didn't feel like they were unbalanced with the other character classes. I felt like somebody could play a knight better than me playing a Valkyrie. I just had an easier time with the Valkyrie. So I never understood why these classes are locked behind it, and it felt almost like a gate that you didn't need, especially in the beginning. My first couple of runs, because I wasn't great in the beginning, spoilers, but my first couple of runs I died really early, and I had not unlocked those character classes yet, and that's just boring, to not be able to just bam all 3 spell swords, all 3 knights, when I knew that there was other classes in there. It was a little bit of a miss, in my opinion. I think all the classes should have been unlocked right off the bat, and just, hey man, they're in there, and whatever you procedure generate you get. My next con is the way they handle history. So one of the coolest things about this game, one of the things that I found so interesting, is that each one of these characters is a character. Sometimes you only play them for like 5 minutes before they die, but they're a character. They have a name, they have a gender, they have traits, they have personality. So when you die, at the end of a run, you get a status kind of screen that pans out, tells you how many enemies you killed, how much gold you collected, how many resources you collected, where you killed the enemies, how you moved through the castle. And then it moves back to the heirs screen. Now you can actually scroll through the people you've been, but all that is a picture and a name of what they are. Now, unless I'm missing something, there's no stats associated with them. So I would have liked some sort of mapping in the beginning so that I could really like go back and like track my stats. Like how many did I get how many kills did I get with the Valkyrie versus the mage? Like, why can't I just click on the picture and see that? Even if it's not the full map that they do at the final screen, and it just says, hey, with this character you killed this many enemies, collected this much resources. That would be a little bit cooler. Instead of just scrolling through a list of pictures and names, it kind of detaches you from the connection with the character, which this game seems to be trying to make in the first place. Like, the whole game is trying to give you these connections with these characters, even though you have them for such a short period of time. And then this is so counterintuitive that I can't go back and look at what I did with Sir Katie or Mage Bert or whatever. And that also gates off, in my opinion, important stats if I'm coming back to it after a long period of time. So I would have liked some sort of extended history on the actual, history lineage sort of situation so that I could make a little bit more of an informed choice when I'm moving my money to an heir. That's it. We're going to stick with it, and I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to be playing a lot of this game. I'm not going to lie. I really had fun with it. I was trying to just play a little bit of it the first time, and it just sucked me in for hours. So I'm very excited to keep playing this. I can't wait to see where it goes. All the extended reviews that I've watched show a robust end game once you get through it that I'm excited about. I'm excited to see where this game goes. I think it's probably one of the best, if not the best, procedurally generated platformer out there. So I'm definitely going to be playing it more. So there you guys go. Rogue Legacy 2, my review. Did this help you? Did it not? Please comment below. Let me know. Did I get it right? Did I miss something? Love to hear from you guys. And then, of course, you can reach us on Facebook at OldManGamingDH, on Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord. Links in the description below. You can influence this in all of our shows from there. And then, finally, as long as you keep watching and listening, we'll keep making it. And I'll keep trying to make the videos. I'll see you guys next time.